13, episode 3. So let's get into it. So the show starts off with Portia Luther King. She's on her activism. Basically, they show her doing another protest for Breonna Taylor. It actually opened up with a very positive quote from Portia about just the injustice overall, and specifically, Breonna Taylor. So they open up with a quote, and they have her protesting and marching, and at this protest, she unfortunately gets arrested again. And basically, she talks about how, since it's her second time going to the same facility, how they made it difficult for her and basically made an example out of her, made her be the last one to get released. But even with that all said, basically Portia's like, I don't give a fuck, I'm still gonna keep fighting. She's truly down for the cause. And they also show a for real flashback of her grandpa. He was a part of Bloody Sunday, was on the bridge, and basically she was saying how she feels so connected to him doing all this activism. And I think that's really, like I said, Portia is literally growing, the growth. So in the next scene, we have Drew and her kids, and she's making pancakes. They're getting ready for church, I think a church rehearsal, with her husband Ralph, and her mom. So they're making the pancakes, and basically Drew was saying how since they had their last argument that they haven't really talked about it, and that's normally how the relationship works. They just bury it under the ground and then wait to blow up for the next argument, which is very toxic and unhealthy, because the more you start building up, it's just gonna get released out just way worse than it didn't even have to be all that. So she brings that up, and when the mom is starting her sermon, she basically calls Ralph out about how she heard her daughter crying and how he always likes to argue, and obviously he has something hella smart to say. He's really got a slick ass mouth, he's honestly just rude as fuck. Because the mom was saying, oh, I'm not the type to take sides, and he was like, oh, are you really? Shut up. So then after that, Drew's in her confessional basically saying how she's able to be held accountable for all her actions and stuff, but Ralph isn't. He's very a straightforward person, and how his straightforwardness, his mom confused with disrespect. I don't really think there's no confusion. I think he is disrespectful. There's a way of being straightforward but still saying it a certain way and not being insensitive. And then the mom and him start bickering back and forth a little bit. He's over there saying he made this whole sermon out of our personal issues, blah blah blah. And then Drew hops in and is basically shut the fuck up and listen. All you doing is talking, just fucking listen. The argument ended on a somewhat good note. Him and the mom eventually calmed down and were just okay, whatever. Brought it back to church, and basically Ralph kind of turned it around a little bit and was I'm excited for the sermon. And mom was it's a sermon. I think you're the mom or Drew was it's a sermon for all of us so we can get something from whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. So the next scene, we get Kenya at her house, and her best friend Latoya is coming over. Basically, Latoya pulls up, they're over there all in each other's faces. Oh my gosh, girl. Latoya's over there dropping it like it's hot, being hella extra. I thought I was gonna, I do like her personality, but I still, like I said, I just feel it's just, she's doing too much, and Kenya's egging it on. But you'll see why after this explanation. So Kenya started talking about in the professionals how she adores her and how they're hella close and texts every single day, whoop-de-whoop. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, are you really close with her because you like her, or you're close with her because you're trying to stay on the show and she's new? And I don't know if she'd be in favor or not, honestly. It's really 50-50 when it comes to Kenya. So then they're over there just joking around. Latoya's shaking her ass or whatever. Kenya calls us some honey buns. Latoya wasn't necessarily mad about the honey buns comment. She was like, oh, they're bigger than that. I mean, at least they're not some donut holes like mine. I want to have the honey buns. I'm trying to work my way up to the honey buns, so I'll take whatever. And then Kenya tells her how she told Sydney about the comment that Latoya made about Drew's hair, calling it a pet cat or whatever. And basically they start dragging and talking hella shit. Latoya says how she's not a wig person, which I truly do understand. I'm just now getting into the wig game. I normally do weaves and braids and stuff, and this shit is hard. I saw some tutorials on YouTube with half wigs, the beauty supply half wigs that Drew was talking, not Drew, that Latoya was talking shit about. But on YouTube they jazz it up good, and I'm trying, y'all. I'm trying. Right now I look a hot mess, but with more practice and time, hopefully it gets better. But yeah, Latoya's basically talking hella shit about how the wig is named Drewisha and all this other stuff, and I'm just it's just real not even high schoolish, middle schoolish. Like, it's like, okay, moving on. So then Latoya asked Kenya, I forgot what question, but she asked her like, oh, like, what do you want to do with, not what do you want to do with your life, but something to that effect. And basically Kenya was saying how she wants to live her life and be free, and that's why she's moving on in the divorce. Instantly right away, Latoya's like, oh, let's take some pictures for our dating site. In my head, I'm like, bitch, like, that's kind of fast. Like, she hasn't even probably started for real paperwork and shit. Like, and as we know, like, current in today's blogs, they're quote unquote working on it. So I was like, okay, this is clearly for the TV. And Latoya pulls out this big ass camera, like literally like a, for real, what's it called? Like a Canon or something. And in my head, I'm like, did she have this the whole time? Like, did I miss like how big her bag was? Because it was just very like, literally like, boom, propped up. I'm just like, okay, that's a tad bit extra. So the next scene we get Candy. She's at her house, or actually in her backyard or basketball court, whatever. And she has a bunch of her workout stuff set up, her trainer there. Cynthia's over there, and then Kenya pulls up, and the girls are basically all working out. They all talk about individually in their like confessionals, how obviously with quarantine and stress, everything's going on, how they gained a lot of weight. So just basically trying to burn some fat. So then the girls, they go, after they finish working out, go sit down and like eat or whatever. And basically Cynthia starts talking about her wedding and all the problems with that, how she wants 250 people there. And I was there with Kenya, and she was like, girl, we're in a pandemic, like 250 people. And in my head, like, I mean, don't quote me on this, but didn't Kenya show up to her wedding? I know Nene didn't for sure, but I don't know. So anyways, Cynthia's just talking about all like the things she has to work out with the wedding, talking to her wedding coordinator or whatever about how to basically still have her wedding as she wants with this pandemic, what rules and regulations to go with it. And it's funny because in the confessionals, Kenny was like, oh, don't ask me anything about weddings or anything about wedding planning. I don't ever follow any rules. And it's funny because she don't follow rules of the pandemic either, because we've all seen Candy in the blog. She be at everybody's birthday party, everybody's function, all in the camera, dressed up. Like, we know you don't follow rules. So then Cynthia's basically like, oh, I just need to convince Mike to have this wedding, blah, blah, blah. So the next scene we get Portia and Lauren and her sister Lauren. They're driving in the car. They go to pick up Tanya. Tanya brings out her little baby niece for a little bit. Her sister just had a baby. Tanya hops in the car, and they're on their way, I believe, to meet the new girl, Fallon. They start talking about her. Portia brings up how her husband owns like a restaurant of some sort, or a couple businesses, and how his wife was always so nice, and the wife was like, oh, you guys come over anytime, blah, blah, blah. Tanya's talking about her relationship with her, almost said husband, I'm sorry, fiance, and how, you know, it's up and down in the pandemic. Like, one minute they're, you know, loving each other, just hell in each other's faces. The next minute it's bad, which is a lot of people with this pandemic. With like anyone who you're in a household, it's gonna be up and down when you're around somebody like 24/7, like I said before. And then it leads to Portia basically talking about Dennis and how the pandemic sped up the relationship. So it started out super strong and ended, you know, them breaking up. And the girls were basically telling her, like, you know, he really was a test, he was a test. And I really feel like he was. I mean, personally, for me, the first time he cheated, there would have been no get back together, no therapy, all that bullshit. Because we saw in the blogs how even after the last season, how they got back together, in the blogs around that time after, he was still out with a bunch of girls and everything. Like, she just let him do him, she do her. And she basically was talking about how she likes to compartmentalize things, how she has like being an activist, work, family, all that. And then she pointed out like no relationship, which I feel her. I'm kind of in a way too. Like, you know, keep yourself busy sometimes to not focus on things, but that also could be a bad thing when you just, like I said, let it build up. Like how Drew and her husband are doing. I also forgot to mention too with Cynthia, she was talking to Candy and Kenya were asking about the prenup, and they were both really telling her, do not wait till the last minute, do not wait till the last minute. And you know, the scene with Todd flashes up because, you know, everyone says that Todd wants Candy's money, blah, blah, blah. And then Kenya, basically Cynthia was like, I don't really know why you're talking because you don't even have a prenup. And then Kenya goes into detail like, oh, like there's a lot of stuff I have to lose. But I'm like, didn't the lawyer say that y'all was only together for like, what, 3 months? I mean, 3 years? Like, girl, stop. So next we get the scene with the new housewife or friend of the show, Fallon, Portia, Tanya, and Lauren all pull up to her house. Her house is so pretty, and Fallon is literally gorgeous. She is super, super pretty. But they meet her and her husband. They're in her fat ass backyard, hella nice pool. Like, bro, the shit was decked out. I was like, okay, like I'm fucking with it. They're sitting outside on the couches or whatever, and she's like, oh, do y'all do hookah? She brings out the hookah. She didn't have like the holes punched her. She's like, I'm gonna use my diamond earring. Low key, I was like, ew, bitch, it's a pandemic. Like, you're not about to sanitize that first. You're just gonna go ahead and just poke it. Like, okay, I don't know. Maybe it's a rich people problems I clearly don't know about. But they're going over there, they're smoking the hookah, and then Portia picks up her sister, dumps her in the pool, and they all start just like playing around, jumping in the pool and shit. So then they're sitting in the pool and they have a serious conversation. Fallon brings up to Portia like, oh, I heard you got arrested. And basically Portia is just going in detail just like how she did in the beginning of the episode about like, yeah, how she wasn't scared, but she did say that when she got back home, she cried for 3 days straight because right after she got back, the murder of Jacob Blake happened, and basically how she was just like tired. And everybody's just going around saying like how they feel about, you know, what's going on in the world right now. And Fallon brings up how she's from the South and how she's used to it, but like, you know, basically, you know, she's used to it. She just even more so tired because she's been dealing with it in a not a significant way, because I feel like being Black, we all deal with it, but I will say being out on the West Coast, it probably is very different from being in the South. I visited the South before myself, and I was kind of like, whoa, like, y'all niggas really live like this? That's crazy. And I like what Portia said. She was like, it may feel like we're helpless, like our flesh, or like physically may feel like we're helpless, but we're not helpless. There are still things that we can do. And Tanya brings up, yes, education, people having a voice, which is very true. Like, us getting more educated, especially with like in the politics, who are the people putting these laws in place, who's getting elected, who's doing this. There is a way. I do have hope. We just gotta all collectively do the work. So next scene we get Drew, and honestly her husband, like, he really is showing his ass. Like, my nigga, it's only the 3rd episode and you really showing your whole ass. Like, at this point I can firmly say, like, I do not like him. Like, I don't even need to, oh, let me get to know him. No, I do not like him. He's such an asshole. They're in the process of moving to another house. Drew mentions how this is her first home that she is buying, and she's basically like, you know, come help with the boxes, blah, blah, blah. They start talking about basically like the logistics of the actual buying process of the house, and he's basically making it like I, me, and she was like, we're buying this house together. I should be more involved in what is going on, like, you know, paperwork wise, all that. And he's basically like, no, like, you're sticking your nose in business that it doesn't need to be in. You need to focus on just packing up. And it makes me think he's one of those like very like manly man, or what's it called, like not sexist, oh yeah, kind of sexist, but you know, one of those people who's like, you wife, you cook and clean, I, you know, go to work, bring, you know, like, he's just very like, I guess, traditional in that sense, and very controlling, because it's like you really won't let her do any of the paperwork, have any insight, and she's putting up her money too. Like, it's not just your money, like, she's also, this is, you know, I think he made a rude ass comment saying, because she was like, I want to know more about the process, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, should I write down all the steps on a piece of paper? Like, bitch, like, why are you so, he's just so, like, rude for no fucking reason. Like, that was just like I feel like he talks to her like she's stupid or something. Like, chill. So next thing we get is Drew and her husband. They're driving over to the new house. Basically on the car right there, she's telling her husband how she hit up a counselor for them, and he's low-key, no, he's high-key on the defense. He's like, oh, so now she's gonna already be biased. She was just probably over there telling her blah, blah, blah. And in my head, I'm like, isn't the main point of a counselor to have somebody who's not biased to anybody? That's why you're talking to a counselor. I don't know. He was being super extra. I was like, okay, you sound dumb. But he said he was still down for it regardless. So for the next scene, the next scene we get is Cynthia and her fiance, Mike. I remembered his name this time, and her sister, Mal. I thought it's Mallory, but her sister's there. And basically they're getting a tour of the venue that they're supposed to be having the wedding at. It's a very, very pretty place, very big, can definitely hold to 250 people or whatever. So they're outside like on the balcony or whatever, and just them three, after like the chores over, them three are talking about it. And basically the sister was like, you know, you can just have this wedding out like Bailey in the backyard, make it small. And basically Mike kind of started to harp on like, you know, like Brody said from the jump, I don't really care about the wedding, all I care about is marrying you. Basically this whole scene, Cynthia was just acting like a brat. Cynthia just saying how no, she doesn't want to have it at her house, she wants a big wedding, she wants all her friends, her family there, that's what she really cares about. And she just really gets like deep in her feelings, because basically Mike is like, you know, like I don't really care. And towards the end, basically Cynthia's like, you guys are making me feel like an asshole, making me feel like evil for like what I want. And it's like, girl, they really, all they did was put out a suggestion, a plan B, which you do need to have within this pandemic. Like that just makes sense. And side note, Cynthia already knew she had a big butt, but her weight gain looks good on her. Like her butt was already big before, but now like her shit is fat. Like that shit was crazy. I was like, whoa, like damn. But yeah, so Cynthia ends up storming out like a little brat. She's got an attitude, and the girl who worked there, I feel like she was low-key being like petty. She's like, what's wrong, Cynthia? Your mood changed, blah, blah, blah. Like you, she knew what she was doing. She was camera ready. Then the last scene is Cynthia and Mike in the car, and basically they're reharping on the wedding and talking about specifically the date. Because at this point, Mike is tired. He's like, I've already told you, like, I only care about like just marrying you. I don't care about this wedding shit. And basically he calls Cynthia a hypocrite, because Cynthia is going back and forth. 1 minute she's saying, oh, I don't care about the wedding, all I care about is marrying you, we could get married any day. And then on the other hand, she'd be saying like, no, I want it to happen on this date, blah, blah, blah. So she don't even know what the fuck she's talking about. She really is going back and forth. And it's funny because they show like flashbacks or scenes of her literally going back and forth and being a hypocrite. And then at this point, Mike is fed up, so he's like, how about this? If we don't get married at that venue on that date, then I don't want to get married at all. Let's postpone the wedding. And obviously that makes Cynthia upset. And she was basically like, I don't see why you only see it as, oh, like it's just only for you and this is what I want. I'm not saying I need this, but this is just what I want. Blah, blah, blah. And then what did he ask her? He said, what did he say? But basically he was like, so are we gonna get married on this date, yes or no, or whatever. She was like, I don't know. And he's like, good, that's all I needed, like I'm good over here. And I'm just like, damn. But like I said, we know in the vlogs it all works out, so this is like for the cameras. But Cynthia is really being hard-headed, because it's like, okay, I get you want to have a big family, all your friends and everything there, but it's like we are in a whole ass pandemic, and there are some people who literally cancel their weddings, postpone it till next year, whatever. Not everybody, you know, like not everybody is able to, especially depending on where you live. You're out here in California, you for sure not probably able to have a big wedding like that. So in the South, they are a little bit lenient, but it's like, Cynthia, like, you're doing too much, you know? But, all right. That's the end of this episode. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow me on my socials, and I'll see y'all next week.